their military spokesperson or leader for their military operations, Suhair Hussein, said in an interview in 1977, listen to this, the Palestinian people does not exist. The creation of a Palestinian state is only a means for continuing our struggle against the state of Israel for our Arab unity. Only for political and tactical reasons do we speak today about the existence of a Palestinian people. It's an invented people. And this lie has been sold to the whole world. Every government in the world today, they have bought this lie. Since Arab national interests demand that we posit the existence of a distinct Palestinian people in order to oppose Zionism, in other words, to oppose the Jewish national movement to be restored in their homeland. For tactical reasons, Jordan, which is a sovereign state with defined borders, cannot raise claims to Haifa and Jaffa, while as a Palestinian, I can undoubtedly demand both Haifa, Jaffa, Beersheba, and Jerusalem. That's what they came up with, this idea about Palestinian people, in order to rob the Jewish people of their God-given right, their historic right to their own land. Next quote. This is King Hussein of Jordan. He said in 1987, the appearance of the Palestinian national personality comes as an answer to Israel's claim that Palestine is Jewish. I want to read this to you. One can read thousands of Arabic books and newspapers written before 1964 without finding anything about an Arabic or Muslim Palestinian state or a reference to Arabs as uniquely Palestinian. There has never in all of history of mankind, before the Jewish immigration began, existed any Palestinian king, sultan, monarch, or no Palestinian capital in Jerusalem, ever. No Palestinian poet, writer, or intellectual who promoted a specific Palestinian culture, and there has never existed any Palestinian language. Golda Meir, who became the Prime Minister of Israel, she said, I am a Palestinian. From 1921 to 1948, I carried a Palestinian passport. There existed nothing in the area such as Jews and Arabs and Palestinians. There were Jews and Arabs, period. Go to the next slide. This is an Arab Knesset member who said in 1994, he is now, he doesn't live in Israel anymore. He is sought for treason by the state of Israel. I think there is an Arab nation. I don't think there is a Palestinian nation. I think it's a colonialist invention. Aha. When were there any Palestinians? Next slide. Now you have the final quote by an Arab leader. The Palestinian people have no national identity. I, Yasser Arafat, man of destiny, will give them that identity through conflict with Israel. The founder of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, Yasser Arafat, or he was one of the founders in 1964. This is what he said several times in his authorized biography. So I want to say this. We can go to the next slide maybe. While you look at that, listen to this. In 1948, Palestine meant a homeland for the Jews. The Arabs eventually took over the name of Palestine, made it their own, and successfully sold their invented story to an ignorant world in order to get their sympathy. But it's a false sympathy. Why? Because the Arabs already have 22 states. You see the Arab states here on this map. These are the 22 Arabic states. They have already 22. And Israel is so small you cannot discover Israel on the map. But that's too much for Muslims. If you want to be a Muslim and truly believe in the Islamic religion, a Jewish state cannot exist. That's why they have invented a Palestinian people in order to remove the land from the Jews. Whose side are you on? Let's take a stand for the truth. The Arab League, they have 22 states with 463 million people. Israel has 7.2 million Jews. Next slide. You see, the Arab League was established in 1945 in order to oppose the creation of a Jewish state. That's why Egypt, when they made peace with Israel, was suspended from the Arab League in 1979 because they had violated the very charter reason for the Arab League to exist. Later on, Egypt was invited back. But you see, that's the basis here. Let's take the next slide here. Okay, here we see the father of the origins to the Muslim opposition to a Jewish state in Palestine. His name is Hajj Amin al-Husseini, and he was the uncle of Yasser Arafat. He began to stir up terror and violence against the Jews in Palestine already right after the San Remo decision in 1920. In 1929, for instance, he orchestrated the massacre of all Jews in Hebron in Israel and drove the Jews out from that ancient Jewish city. The British had a problem with him because of all that violence, and in World War II, he fled to Berlin, where the Nazis gave him a luxurious villa in Berlin, gave him a monthly salary and a powerful radio station to promote his agenda to the Arab world. And he was famous for the saying, "Muslims kill Jews wherever you find them. It is pleasing to Allah and honor to all Arabs." Here he's sitting with Adolf Hitler, and he became a good friend of Adolf Eichmann, who was overseeing the Holocaust of 6 million Jews. It was Hajj Amin al-Husseini who told the Nazis, "Don't just kill the Jews, burn them." And that's what the Nazis began to do in the gas chambers. He already had made plans for concentration camps for all Jews in Palestine in case Hitler's army had made it that far. But the British stopped the German army in Egypt in the Battle of Al Alamein, which saved the Jews in Palestine. After World War II, he fled Berlin and eventually ended up in Egypt, where he began to mentor his nephew Yasser Arafat, train him in hatred for the Jewish people, and to disciple him to become the leader of an Arab uprising against the state of Israel. Now, the second route to the Palestinian national movement, this was the religious route by Amin al-Husseini. But the ideological route to invent a Palestinian myth came from the KGB in the Soviet Union, who trained Yasser Arafat and said, "You cannot conquer Israel by being Arabs. You have to come up with an original people in the land and claim your liberation from a colonialist power called Israel." So the PLO was formed in 1964. And here's something that is interesting, because in 1964, the so-called West Bank, which in the Bible is called Judea and Samaria, was governed by Jordan, an Arab state. Gaza was governed by Egypt, an Arab state. So in Article 24 in the PLO original charter, they said, we have no claims whatsoever to the West Bank and Gaza. The very areas where the world today wants to create a Palestinian state through the two-state solution. Why did they say they had no claims to the West Bank and Gaza? Because they were already in the hands of Arabs. They only wanted what was remaining of Israel that was in the hands of Jews. The Palestinian agenda is invented in order to rob the Jewish people of their own land. So here we have their symbol. It's not roses and doves and flowers. It's a very violent symbol. Let's go to the next slide. You see, Joseph Goebbels, who is in the picture here, was the Nazi propaganda minister in Germany. And he said the following: if you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. And friends, this is what has happened with the myth of Palestine. It's a Nazi propaganda tactic that they learned from the Nazis. Okay, next slide. We have Newt Gingrich here, a statement he made in 2011 when he ran for the nomination of the Republican Party to become a president of the United States. And I love this quote. I think we have had an invented Palestinian people. The fact is, the Palestinian claim to a right of return is based on a historically false story. This is a propaganda war in which our side refuses to engage, and we refuse to tell the truth when the other side lies. And you're not going to win in the long run if you're afraid to stand firm and stand for the truth. Somebody has to speak the truth. And that's why you need to get this book. I'm going to say a little bit more about that in a moment. Let's take the next slide here. This is so serious that God says in Joel chapter 3, verse 1 and 2, that He is going to judge every nation on the face of the earth for dividing His land. It's very, very serious. Next slide, please. The mountains of Israel, which is today called the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, is the very heart of the promised land. That's where most of the prophecies in the Bible are all about. It is not much in the Bible about the area around Tel Aviv and Haifa. It's mostly speaking about the mountains of Israel. God, and there's a reason for it, because that's the very area that the whole world wants to take away from Israel. Next slide. I want to end by saying this. You cannot believe in this book and at the same time believe the Palestinian myth. The two are mutually exclusive. You have to choose one or the other. And today, leaders in Israel say, I heard them say, a Knesset member that I heard say this firsthand, and it's repeated many times. Today, the conflict is basically a conflict against God and His Word. And we do not have any other friends today in all the world except Christians who believe in the same Bible that we have. That's what Israel is faced with now. Every nation on the face of the earth, including to a large extent the United States of America.